So hello, everybody. My name is Irene Dry. I'm the Work-Based Learning Coordinator at Imperial Valley College. With me, I have Genaro Ayala, Janet Cruz, and Maricela Moreno, which you'll get to meet them later on in the presentation. So more about our team. The WBL team is made up of Efrain, the Dean of Economic and Workforce, Victor Torres, the Associate Dean of Workforce Development, which he's also here. Then me, the WBL coordinator, and then 6 WBL trainers. These trainers consist are faculty members from each division of our campus. The WBL trainers and I meet monthly for at least 2 hours, and we create monthly professional development presentations. The WBL trainers are the ones who lead the presentations, and these presentations are open to all full-time and part-time faculty. The trainers also focus on helping faculty in their division, whether it is to inform them and encourage them to participate in the presentations, or to assist them in creating WBL opportunities, or even editing their syllabi. The trainers are a wonderful resource. We love them. They were recently added last year in November with the assistance from Southwestern College, and we're very grateful that we have the WBL trainers. Then we also have the Career Services staff. The WBL team works really closely with the Career Services Center. We're housed in the same department and in the same building, which creates a seamless process for us. We're able to provide each other with feedback, guidance, and support. If one needs employers or more information or more guidance, then we are really good at communicating with each other, either via Zoom, text, email, and that's something for us at IVC has helped us tremendously, especially when it has to do with helping our students or our faculty. And then, well, the Career Services Center consists of Genaro Ayala, he's a job placement case manager, Janet Cruz, the internship and work experience coordinator, and Maricela Moreno, the student success specialist, and Roxanne Morales, the career education counselor. So now we're gonna talk about the WBL process maps for faculty engagement. So it is important to note first that anything with a red star means that we are collecting data. And it can be data for SG21, XB09, or we're collecting it in our Google Drive, in Excel, or other anything in that the resources that we use. So one of the first things to know, recently that we have added the WBL trainers, our primary goal was to increase faculty awareness of WBL. So for us, the WBL team discusses future professional development presentations. We established the details of the presentation, and we assigned who is going to be leading those presentations. We then talk about our timeline, our vision, and I, as the work-based learning coordinator, create the the promotional items, and I promote it via email, or we also have a website specifically under our faculty and staff. And faculty are able to see future presentations and register there as well. Then the WBL faculty trainers contact other faculty members in their departments and division and encourage them to attend, specifically if they know if somebody's gonna benefit from attending these professional development presentations. We also focus on maybe those who haven't attended our WBL presentation, so they could at least get some awareness if they hear WBL in other meetings. We then submit the list of faculty who register to our HR, because any faculty member who attends our presentations do get paid for attending, which is a great bonus and helps us in promoting our services. And so once that's submitted, we do track it in the Google Drive. We want to know who registered and also who is attending. During the presentation, we track faculty who participated, and then we do follow-ups. The follow-ups may consist of maybe a survey. We do email the video of the recorded video. We do track maybe faculty who needed more assistance or wanted more one-on-ones. So for us, the follow-up is very important, and also helps us know how can we assist our faculty more, or what is our faculty seeking, and also provides us with an idea of what other presentation we should focus on. So more on the process, faculty may request WBL opportunities by contacting me or the WBL trainers, the Career Services Center, by phone, by email, by Zoom, or even in our WBL website, they can complete a form and request more assistance. So after the initial contact is made, an appropriate team member is assigned to that project. For example, if the faculty member is seeking work readiness preparations, then it's most likely going to go to Marisela, our student success specialist, who will be the assigned team member. Or maybe the faculty needs more connection with employers, then either Renato or Janet may be able to assist more in depth, and they'll be the assigned team member. Once there's an assigned team member, then we discuss it more in detail. So that's when we start tracking. We talked about our target population, which semester is this for, the time frame of the project, what the faculty is requesting. And then this is tracked once again in our Google Drive, particularly in an Excel sheet. We then connect with potential agencies, maybe the companies and faculty that were discussed that we were going to target. And with that, depending if they say yes, if an employer say yes, or a partnership was made, then we start more of the developing that opportunity and setting it and building it more in depth. If needed, we do edit the syllabi. So this is not required for faculty members, but it is encouraged. So an example of that, we currently have a professor who created a mock interview assignment. This consists of students doing mock interviews with the Career Services team by Zoom or by phone. So the Career Services team, particularly Marisela, the Student Success Specialist, who's leading this project, is helping students create mock interview appointments, and then they interview them. This resulted in the faculty member editing their syllabi and creating this WB opportunity and showing it in their syllabi, which is not required but recommended, and helps us also be able to track that and know, track it in our SG21. Then this is the first semester, to be transparent, that we're following this process map. Therefore, in the area of assessing, we're currently there. We're currently in the process of assessing the WB opportunities that have happened this semester. So we're still in the process of creating a survey of assessing or modifying any of those projects that were built and are currently in the process of being launched, because we do still have several WBL projects. So we're still in the assessing part. So, and then we also are reporting any of this information to SG21 and then also XBIZ09. So, and now with the, now we'll talk about the WBL process maps for student engagement. So this is our WBL process map for student engagement. We're currently working on increasing students requesting WBL opportunities because currently it's an ongoing process. As mentioned earlier, our WBL team's primary goal was it is to increase faculty awareness of WBL. So WBL's team's primary focus has been faculty at IVC. You can say that the Career Services Center has been focusing more in depth in helping our students. Students, however, may request WBL opportunities by phone, Zoom, email, or by requesting our WBL website. They may contact me, the WBL trainers, or the Career Services team. Depending on their request, an appropriate member is assigned. And then once there is an appropriate member, team member, the opportunity to discuss more in detail. And once again, it's documented in our Google Drive, in Excel. Depending if of the need, then we connect with an agency, a potential faculty member, or a company. With that, we develop the opportunity. So for example, recently, I should say, nursing students wanted they wanted volunteer work after completing their clinicals. So they informed our WBL trainer from the nursing department. Then the WBL trainer contacted the Career Services Center team, particularly Janet Cruz, our internship and work experience coordinator, which then she was able to create that WBL opportunity and connected the students to volunteer opportunities. So that's one example of how that opportunity was developed. And sometimes we do promote, if available, we promote that opportunity. So if it was successful and if more opportunities are available to other students, then we do then we try to promote it and provide that opportunity to other students, either via social media or by email, or even our social media, Facebook. The Career Services Center has a Facebook that provides this information to students. And then we also inform our faculty as well if there's that opportunity. So again, this is the first semester we're following this process map. Therefore, we're currently still in the process of assessing our projects to see how if they were successful or not, or if we need to modify them, or maybe we need to increase promotion or anything that we need to do. We're still in this stage. And of course, we are reporting to SG21 and XB09. We thankfully have worked really closely with our staff who has trained us and have really informed us of how to use SG21 and XB09. Now we'll have Genaro Ayala present the job placement process maps.
Well, thank you, Irene. And if we can go to the next slide, we'll talk about the resources that we use to identify students, the referral processes that are in place for other departments to refer students to us, and then the determining the level of readiness for students that have been referred to us. So on the first point, some of the resources that we use include reaching out to career education instructors. They can provide us access to cohorts of students that they currently have. They can also give us very valuable feedback on what students they recommend, which ones they think are able and willing to go to work. When we're working with employers will ask for very specific abilities or qualities in an individual, and who better than the instructor that has spent time with these students to make those connections. I wanted to be intentional about mentioning non-career education faculty also. At least for me, it was kind of, my focus was career educational and career educational instructors. But I had this little run of, I'll give you an example. I had an attorney, a lawyer's office call me and says, I'm looking for somebody that to help out in the office, but they wanted very strong writing skills. And so what they said is, I want somebody that has an English major. And so sure enough, I had to kind of change my thought process and go look for those instructors and get them to refer somebody that they thought might be a good fit. And interestingly enough, I'm sure other job developers, well, I think might have seen this. When you help an employer in a particular industry, they talk to other people in that industry. And then we had a couple of other lawyers say, hey, we need somebody to assist in the office. And we like somebody with an English major that has, strong writing skills. So that's why I wanted to be intentional about mentioning non-career education faculty. The third resource that we use is the institutional research. And they do a great job of providing data to identify students who are nearing completion of their programs. And they are great at breaking that information down by field of study. Also, they're pursuing a certificate or a degree. They also give us information on students that are now alumni, right? That recently completed their programs. And again, by field of study, whether they obtain a certificate or a degree, and also very valuable, their contact information. Um, Moving on, how departments refer students to us. It's really, it happens in two ways. And currently the most common one, I'll say, is that's a direct referral in which somebody from a particular department will either email, call, or send a text and say, hey, I've got a student here that we think you can help, and here's his contact information, or I'm sending him over right now, prior to COVID. And so that's something that is still, or was, very common. The other way in which they can refer students to us is using a more formalized way, which is the Career Services Center website, and referring students to complete the request for service form. So we think that this is completion of that form is definitely a great way to go. And this provides a more formal process. And it is also a step in institutionalizing our process, right? It's not dependent on that one-on-one conversation with one another. There's a process there to be done. And so more and more, we're trying to inform and remind other departments to use that route as the more common route. Then once we've had students referred to us, we need to determine their level of readiness. And this really is a two-step process where, first of all, we have them fill out a completion of an intake form. And this intake form provides a very surface-like view of their work experience, and what their field of study is, and what their goals are and barriers are. That then triggers a seek to understand conversation. And during COVID times, this is probably in a Zoom setting, in which we do a deeper dive into the work experience, education, hard skills, soft skills, and any barriers that would keep them from being successful. So this really helps us determine if they are ready to be referred to employers or not. Moving on to the next slide, if the student is deemed not to be ready, then our job is to determine what assistance is needed and who can provide that assistance. For example, if a student needs help with a career exploration, they might be referred to our career counselor. However, if they need assistance with job search documents like resume, cover letter, and such, they will be referred to the Career Services Center staff. If the student is deemed ready or becomes ready after receiving additional support, we hold a conversation to discuss mutual expectations with the student. Meaning, we want to talk to them about what they can expect from the job place placement manager. This includes job development efforts from the job placement case manager on behalf of the student, where appropriate, implementation of wages subsidy programs like on-the-job training or WEX, and also providing of relevant employment leads. If needed, assistance with completion of application, mock interviews. The other thing that is set during this conversation are expectations that we have on the student or alumni. And these include the expectation that they need to conduct job search activities on their own, that they need to share these activities with the job placement case manager, and that they need to be responsive and open to relevant opportunities that will come up, right? The job placement case manager will provide industry-related employment leads, and this is done by reviewing daily multiple employment lists like those that come from Indeed, CalJobs, EdJoin, and OneStop. along with other search engines. These are things that are already out there that are being publicized by the employer, and we want to be looking through them with our students in mind and thinking which ones might be a good alignment for our students, and then forwarding those leads to our students just in case that they've missed them or have not seen them. Additionally, the job placement case manager will conduct ongoing job development activities that will target the needs of our students and alumni. Developing hidden job leads that are not yet being promoted publicly. This should increase opportunities for our students and alumni, and they will hopefully not be competing with general population of job seekers, right? So as we go out and we develop relationship with industries that are related to the courses offered here, and we can get to that employer and ask them to share staffing needs before they're put out there for everybody to see, and we can bring in a few of our students to be considered, then they're not competing with the vast numbers of people that can apply for those positions. It's important to mention that throughout this process, the job placement case manager will continuously communicate with students and employers, keeping them up to date of progress on processes that pertain to them. For example, if a student applied for a job and is kind of antsy about not getting a response yet, it will be my job to say, hey, listen, I'm talking to the employer. They're still going through their decision-making process. Please be patient. And another example is if an employer has reached out and has with a staffing need, and we are recruiting for that employer, I will be sure to keep the employer up to speed of that process and how well it's going or things of that nature. Finally, it's important to mention that case management is being done by the job placement case manager really from the moment that the student was referred to us. And this is done by creating a short bio with students' relevant information, which will include goals and needs. Beyond that, anytime a service is provided or a goal is met with this, this will be documented in case notes. So this is ongoing throughout. Okay. Next slide, please. So it's just important for us to mention, as Irene did earlier, that we are, that our data points are marked by the red star that you see throughout our presentation, that SG21 data is being recorded in the MIS system, and that beyond that, we internally track industry-related placements along with general employment information like full-time, part-time, and wages earned. And we do that internally for our own purposes. So next, Marisela Moreno, our Career Services Center Student Success Specialist, will continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Renato. So when an employer, this is our process when an employer reaches out to the Career Services Center. They can contact us directly through phone or through email. I will then properly screen their needs. So for example, if they have a job opportunity or an internship opportunity, also if they're interested in presenting to our students or would want to have a recruitment event on campus, if those were the case, I do then refer them to our request forms that we have online for them for a presentation or a recruitment event. At this time, I would then have them, I would also inform them about the employer survey. So we do have a survey, encourage them to fill it out. It's just questions for future interest. So are they interested in participating in our advisory meetings? Will they be interested in participating in our career fairs and so forth, as well as encourage them to create an account through our College Central, which is our online job network. If the employer agrees to the value and the benefit of having a CCN account, then I will go ahead and provide them the link for them to create an account, or as well as a system if needed. If they need help creating an account, I'll go ahead and help them with that. Moving on, then I will go ahead and refer the employer to the appropriate staff. So again, depending on what is the employer's need, if they have a job opportunity, then I would refer them to Renato. If they are interested in having an internship, then I would refer them to Jeanette Cruz. From there, the job placement case manager or the internship coordinator will contact the employer They would input the employer's contact information onto their tracking system. Currently, we are starting the process in merging those two tracking sheets into a global database, so everyone will have access to those employer contact information. From there, the job placement case manager and internship coordinator will follow up with the employer through phone or email. They will evaluate the employer's needs, what exactly is that they are wanting in the position, their staffing criteria, is there a major recommended for the student, or what skills is the student needed? From there, the job placement case manager or the internship coordinator will send me the opportunity, and then I will go ahead and promote those opportunities through social media such as Facebook and Instagram, and as well as our College Central Network account. And next we will have Jeanette Cruz talking about when an employer reaches out to them directly.
Thank you, Marisela, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about if an employer outreach to either the job placement case manager or myself, the internship coordinator. We both follow the same process because we both do the outreach and we communicate with employers. There might be some steps that might be different for me, and I'll explain that through the process. So beginning with the job placement and our internship coordinator. So if an employer reached to any of us, either Renato or myself, we will properly screen what is the employer's need. It's something that we have already mentioned throughout the different processes. We want to understand what is the need of an employer. Maybe they heard about IVC has these great services. They reach out to me as an internship coordinator, but then I realize that there's a need to hire. So then my job is to refer that employer to Renato, and Renato will continue through that process. But if in that process, once we identify what is the need, we want to make sure that employer is already on our system for College Central Network. If they understand the value and the great benefits that this system has for them. And as Marisela mentioned, if needed, we'll provide employer with assistance. If not, we'll just send the employer the link for them to create an account. At this point, we'll input the employer information into our database. As Marisela mentioned in the previous slide, currently we both have our different Google Docs, but we're in the process of merging both of our systems into one global employer database. We want to make sure that we both share our employers. Our county is very small, and we don't want to make sure that we bombard our employers with us going repetitively. We represent the same institutions, so we want to make sure that we start merging our employers and just identify who made that initial contact and just have this global database. So once we get to that point of inputting the employee information, if it's something that is related to internship, then it will go to the bottom step where it identifies to establish a partnership agreement. Before I even start recruiting or promoting an opportunity, we want to establish a partnership agreement within the employer and Imperial Valley College. This agreement identifies what is our expectations for the internship program, how a student is covered under a workman's compensation insurance. Once we establish that partnership agreement, then we move on to recruiting the student based on what the employer is needing. Or if on the other side, if we already identify that the employer wants to hire, then again, that lead will be passed to the job placement case manager, and then either Renato for recruiting to hire or me recruiting for interns will initiate the recruitment of students for me, and Renato will be students and alumni. Once we initiate the recruitment process, we're gonna be promoting that opportunity. There's different ways that we can recruit. We can recruit students by reaching out to our faculty. We can recruit students through, or as Renato mentioned on the previous ways of recruitment, utilizing our local research department. We can identify from College Central Network students that have created profiles that identify the different majors, or through our social media. So I'll provide whatever promotional assistance needed. Marisela, who is very good on creating those flyers and helping us promote the opportunity through our social media and sending them through our students' CCN accounts to all of our students on campus. After we promote the opportunity, then we start receiving those students who are interested in participating on either an internship or applying for a job. Then the next step is for us to screen students and make sure they meet the qualifications that were established by the employer. After we screen the students, we want to make sure that employer has, a minimum number of students for them to be able to review. So we refer those students to employers. Employers are the ones that make that final decision who they get to select, either for hire or an internship opportunity. Throughout this process, we do track, as Genaro mentioned, we track that the initial employment, and we make sure that we follow up through that process. If placed, or either in a job or an internship opportunity, we track that information on SG21 and our databases as well.
Okay, so moving on, our process for reaching out to employers, you'll see some similarities here from the prior process, and this is something that looks very similar for Janeth and myself. So first of all, we want to identify employers that have already made public a staffing need. And so to do this, we look at multiple search engines. Again, some of them mentioned like Indeed and CalJobs and Indeed and IfJoin and things like that. And so we reach out to these employers that have already stated that they have a need. And first thing we want to do is we want to kind of determine who is the decision maker there. And we want to set up a meeting with them. In current times, that meeting is going to more than likely be a Zoom meeting. But more and more, we are pushing to transition to in-person. So once that meeting is set up and we meet with the employer, our main goal is to understand what are the business needs of that employer, right? For example, do they need to hire, or are they looking for an intern, right? Are there some minimum requirements? Do they require a degree or years of experience and things of that nature? Are there any abilities and qualities that they desire? How quickly do they need to fill this position? And do they have one opening or various openings? I think it's important that we understand those things so that we can service their needs as best as possible. Beyond that, during that initial meeting, we want to promote the quality of our students and the value that they can bring to the employer. Having current, relevant knowledge, right? That is can sometimes be very, very valuable. There's people out there with tons of years and years of experience, but their knowledge base is so outdated. Industries change and upgrade, and so we help the employers see the value on recently graduated students. We also promote with the employer the importance and the benefits of the wage subsidy programs that are available to our partnering agencies, like on-the-job training that reimburses up to 70% of their wages, or the WIX program, which in essence can pay 100% of their wages and workers' comp for a number of weeks, typically around 12 weeks. Even though WIX is not a placement, it's a work experience program, and we've done a few of them, quite a few, I should say. Every WIX program that we've done, it's with the employer's expectation that that individual will be hired as a long-term employee at the completion of the WIX. It's kind of a mindset that we set in them, and that's the expectation. And for the most part, they work out that way. So, so beyond that, after that, having that initial meeting and understanding what the business needs are, if it's an internship that they're looking for, then from there, Janeth, the internship coordinator, will run with that, and she has a process that she does, some documentation. And if it's an actual placement, a direct hire, then we start recruiting. For the appropriate individual, the appropriate candidates. And so that recruitment really comes in two ways. One is we can look to a pre-existing pool of applicants that we might have there that have that relevant skills or abilities. And if that's not enough, or there's nobody there to meet the employer's needs, then we want to start promoting these opportunities in our various platforms. And so that can be College Central Network or our different social media platforms, or reaching out to faculty that teaches those courses or that relevant industry. Once we've identified, or depending on the response that we get from that promotion, it's typical for us to have to do some pre-screening for the employer. And so, we don't want to send 20 applicants to the employer for one position. And so we really want to bring value to the table for that employer. And we want to identify, if it's one position that is open, we want to identify maybe 3, possibly 4 candidates that we feel will be a good fit for that employer, based on what they've described as the business needs, right? Skills, abilities, education, experience, things of that nature. And what we're looking to do here is we're looking for the employer to have some skin in the game. We want them to actually make that final decision and say, I choose this individual. We don't want to tell them who to choose. We want to give them options, but we want them to take ownership of that. And so, once we've done the pre-screening, we refer a selected number of individuals for the employer to interview. And if all goes as planned, the employer will select one of our candidates, and it will either be an internship, it'll be a direct placement, or it'll be a direct placement using one of the wage subsidies programs that will eventually turn into a long-term placement. That is our ultimate goal. That is the process in which we do this. And it's worth mentioning that, again, throughout this whole process, we're continuously keeping both the students and the employers up to date on the individual hiring process, so that everybody is in the loop. Everybody knows what step is next, and what to expect next, right? We continue to track relevant SG21 data in our system. And again, we continue to track other general employment data for our benefits internally. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our presentation. We want to thank you for your attention and look forward to your feedback and any questions that you might have for us.
Awesome. Thank you to the IVC team. So like I said, we have about 18 minutes or so. So this is the opportunity for us to get into our deep dive, our questions based on their demonstration. So what questions do we have for the IVC team? We've seen some fantastic and nice presentation comments and stuff in the chat, guys. So.
I have a question, and I think it was Jeanette that had mentioned this. When you're working with an employer, and you said that once you have an agreement, is this a written agreement? Is this a verbal agreement? How do you go about really making that official?
Yes, the agreement that we have is a written agreement. And that's being signed by the employer and an IVC administrator.
Okay, thank
Jen,
you.
Do you have to send that agreement through
Yeah.
the review, or is there a standard contract process for that? Or is it a pre-approved contract that you're able to just use with every employer?
Currently, we just got this new partnership agreement approved by our administrators. So I use that same contract for any new partnership agreements that we make.
I think it might be worth clarifying that this is done solely for the internship piece, not for the direct placement.
Thank you, Hannah.
Janet, that may be something, if you haven't considered, that you may consider sharing with the region for us to include with our work-based learning stuff, right? As a resource that people could use as they're developing opportunities like this. But that sounds great. Thank you.
Yes, I can share that information over to the region.
And I think I interrupted somebody. I started talking and I heard someone unmute themselves. Did someone else have a question?
I have a quick follow-up to that, which is there an opportunity in that form to document the students' learning goals? Is there a conversation with the employer or anything about that?
So the initial partnership agreement is just to establish the relationship between the college and the employer. Once we place a student as part of their internship, we have another training agreement for the student.
Oh, good.
Agreement, it identifies the student information, if it's a pay, non-pay, start date, end date, how many hours, the learning objectives. It identifies the employer expectations, student expectations. And that agreement is being signed by the site supervisor, student, and myself.
Perfect.
And at the bottom of that agreement, I have a section where on a monthly basis, I can update with how many hours they are completing per month. You know, I collect timesheets monthly, but I transfer those hours to that agreement, so I can have them in a concise section under that agreement. And I can share that copy if you guys need a sample.
Great. Great work, you guys.
I'm gonna put my email on the chat. If anyone would like to see any of our agreements or forms that we use, I can definitely share that information over.
Yes, but Lana, I was going to say that I think that's a great question, and I was going to add that when we use these subsidized wage subsidized programs like WEX and OJT, there's a mechanism for that to be followed up to see if the student is meeting goals, meeting expectations, is progressing well, and things like that. And I think those are very helpful tools to ensure or to increase the chances of success in the long term.
Great. Thanks so much. Yeah, great work, you guys.
And just to add to the final step of the internship program, after student completes that training agreement, learning objectives, the timesheets throughout that process, at the end, we do have an evaluation to complete their performance. So we have a performance evaluation where we measure, you know, if they were able to accomplish their learning objectives, and that evaluation performance is being completed by their supervisor. And we conduct a meeting with supervisor and students so we can share that feedback. And then students receive a certificate of completion that identify how many hours they complete, where did they completed those hours.
Perfect. That would be great to add to the packet. Thank you.
This is Richard. I just want to chime in. I definitely think that's wonderful, the forms you've created. I think we all would like to see them. And my question is, I'm sure it's labor intensive. So is there someone who becomes really responsible for making sure that it's, how can I say, negotiated to the student's best interest and followed up so that, in fact, what is agreed upon is actually happening for the student? So is there someone who becomes assigned, or how does that work?
So as mentioned throughout the presentation, you know, once we have a team member assigned, talking about internships, you know, I will make sure that that student is, you know, following whatever steps are needed through that process. Once the student is placed, you know, I'll make sure that that student is attending their internships. I'll do the visits and make sure that they're move along through that process, make sure they're attending, if it's working or not working, collecting their timesheets, sending those emails. So I will be responsible for students who are placed for internships, and then Renato will be responsible, as he mentioned throughout process, for anything that pertains to the placement.
Right, that was my question. It was actually advocating for the student to be sure that the student gets value out of the experience, who we know is the reason we're doing this. And often things shift a little bit. We want to make sure the students get what we hope. So if that's my question, who maintains to make sure that happens?
Richard, I think I'll speak about my experience, and sometimes in working with very small businesses, mom and pop businesses that don't have an HR department and set policies written out and things like that, that employer their expectations or duties and things like that can shift after the student has been placed. And then, you know, sometimes the student is aware enough to say, that's not what I don't think that's what I should be doing and things like that. And I'm not speaking about terrible things, just a significant shift from what the expectation was. I found that from time to time, the employer will call or the student will call and say, hey, I don't think that this is right. Or the employer will say, the student doesn't want to do this or doesn't want to come in at this time or on this day and things like that. And you know, of course, I'll listen to the employer. I'll really try to understand whether what they're asking is within the realms of what's appropriate and things like that. Sometimes it isn't. And so I have to remind the employer that there are guidelines and rules, not set by us, but just employment, right? And again, because they are so small and they don't have the different departments of or the capacity to know all of these things beyond the running of their business, they need to be politely reminded that their request might not be in line with what's appropriate. And so I think as I do that, I think Janeth would probably have the same reaction. You know, being very aware of the business needs, yes, but also of what is right for the student, whether it's learning what he wants to learn, or that he's being treated in a fair and equitable manner. If that makes sense. And I hope that addresses your question a little bit, sir.
It does. I'm aware how much time it can take. And I was really aware that, as you and I probably could say off record, some employers don't know that Ed Code requires, and there's an agreement, and it goes sideways pretty fast when people, so it's pretty labor intensive. So does that become your full-time job, Genaro, to jump on the phone? And that's what I'm asking, really.
Not to that degree. I have not experienced that to that degree, but I have experienced it. And it is a touchy situation, you know, because you kind of want to tiptoe your way around it, because you want to continue the relationship with the employer if it can be continued, right? So it's a balancing act.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Hi, Genaro, and all. This is Bruce from Palomar. I just want to know, like, if I heard you right, I jumped in late. As far as the internships go, if they're placed officially in an internship, is it classified staff or is it faculty that's monitoring them and setting their learning objectives and things of such? Or
so in our case, if it's an internship, Janeth Cruz is our internship coordinator. And so she manages that from the placement to the creating of that agreement that she was talking about, and the monitoring of that placement as it takes its course.
And let me just add to that. Our situation at Imperial Valley College, it's a little bit unique compared to other community colleges. We do have faculty who monitors and supervises the credit internship program. Students who take the cooperative work experience, you know, faculty with assistance, you know, I provide assistance to faculty on finding those connections to employers. But through the Career Services Center, we do offer opportunities to students who are not part of the cooperative work experience, but they want to get the exposure, and they can do it through the Career Services Center, not for credit. Those I supervise. The ones who are through the credit courses are supervised by faculty, and they do follow the same process. You know, they have an agreement, they have a student agreement, they have timesheets and evaluations.
so are those falling under Janeth? Are they paid, or could they be paid and unpaid and you're still supervising those students?
Both paid or not paid. If it's credit, are supervised by faculty. If it's through the Career Service Center, it could be paid, unpaid, and those are being supervised by the internship coordinator through the Career Services Center.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because we're running into that gap at Palomar because we have very few staff with a lot of students. And I was just curious because job descriptions for us, for classified, were like not supervising students and coming up with learning objectives. But if they do a paid internship and they don't want to do cooperative ed, then there's a gap there, because then it falls on me to supervise the student and monitor them, because it really doesn't qualify for a professor watching or monitoring them. And we don't have an internship coordinator, but even internship coordinators, most of those are classified in some form or another, you know. It's so it's interesting how this is coming up in other colleges that's there. So you know, because it's the professors tend to get paid a little more than classified. And coming up with learning objectives means we're teaching, right? You know, it's they're monitoring and supervising those activities rather than just giving employment support and things. So thank you for explaining that.
So I have I guess, a loose question, and in no way is it intended like as a negative or punitive type question, but more as like an opportunity to improve. So as you were going through and like actually mapping out your processes and putting them in the presentation, were there any areas where you were like, oh man, we probably need to work on this a little bit, right? Or we probably need to pay attention to this area or develop something more here. Was there anything that stood out to you guys as you went through those processes?
I think the answer is yes. And I think there was more than one. You know, one that comes to mind is that we're really working towards kind of creating a uniform process of tracking the information. You know, I have a lot of challenges. One of them is Google. And so I use a lot of Excel. But Irene, Jeanette, Maricela, they're like fish in water with Google. And so we're working hard to try to mesh my data and Excel and Word on my case notes and things like that to a more uniform system. And so I think that's one of the ways where we quickly realized that it's important that we merge that. And like I said, I think there's others. That's the one that comes to mind right now. I'm not sure.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with Renato. That was one of the main things that we are currently, it was like a red flag for us. Like, oh, you know, Maricela was having this form and Renato was having this other form. So we're using different outlets and we're duplicating some of the information as well. So it kind of gave us a refocus, like, hey, this is something that, this is our next project. This is something that we need to merge because, you know, we don't want to be double working when we already have that information. And another thing that we're also, for at least that was also something that we were looking at is actually doing the WBL process maps and the process maps for job placement. It helped us really refocus, like, okay, WBL has been focusing on faculty. So and the Career Services Center has been focusing on students. And it kind of made us questions like, is this what we're doing? Is this correctly? Like, it made us, you know, refocus our mission and our vision for each program and really see like, okay, is WBL, is our main focus only faculty, only students? Is there a gap there? Or are we checking the boxes or are we going beyond that? Or for Career Services Center, how can we increase that participation with Career Services Center and WBL? So it really helped us with that that refocus, that, okay, so we are on the right step and we are doing what our vision for each program is, but also it also made us know that, hey, although we are working in the same department, there's some gaps that we do need to merge a little deeper.
I think another one, and this is at the risk of mentioning too many, but, no, but I think we also realized that as we were working out these processes, that we were underutilizing our college central network, right? Both for the students and the employers. And so, you know, that turned out to be a good thing because now we really kind of, everybody's focused on making sure that any contacts that are made with employers and stuff like that, we're guiding them. And not only guiding them and referring them to that network, we're providing them the assistance if needed to complete the process to enroll and things like that. We're also promoting it heavily with students. And so our hope is that it's really going to grow and that's going to allow for greater opportunities in the future.
You know, I can't help but think, you know, how awesome it is that you guys had those realizations now, right? Before we're like 2 more years down the road and way deeper into our work and set in our ways and our processes, right? So making those changes now is far easier than 2 years from now. And so the fact that you were able to come together and realize that is pretty awesome in my opinion. So